FY23. So we've got a good handful of people here today. We're going to move forward, and I'm going to wish you all a happy anniversary to E-Rate. So this is the 25th anniversary of E-Rate. So consider their fireworks and celebration if you were here in person. For those of you who have not worked with me, though I'm looking at the names and all of you know who I am Mindy Fiscus, and I serve as your state E-Rate coordinator. My technical job title is Director of Government Affairs. I deal with E-Rate, national and state organizations revolving around broadband and other things for the state. And so you can see some of those various organizations and my roles in those organizations here. Happy to serve as one of your two state E-Rate coordinators. The other one is Eric Grocky, and he works out of the ISB State Board of Education office in Springfield. He is the one that will validate any of our student counts, and I have his email on an upcoming slide if you need to get in contact with him. For all of you who have been working with me on E-Rate, if you are not taking advantage of some of the other services that the Learning Technology Center provides, please know that we are state funded and here to support you. There are a lot of different focus areas that we can help school districts with. We try to consider ourselves full service for all things ed tech. So whether that is you're looking to try out what it's like to have an integration coach, we do have those people that we contract and hire and then contract out to school districts for a certain number of days a year. Or if it's something that you need a second opinion on a network assessment, or just want to attend some really good quality PD, the LTC is here to help you. So please get in contact with the LTC staff members, myself and others, to support your educational technology needs. Lastly, about the LTC, at least, we have a community that is a online listserv where we can communicate. It is found at community.ltcillinois.org. Hopefully you are all members of that community. If you are, please make sure that you join the Digital Equity Funding and Access Group, which is where I do my E-Rate updates and information about deadlines and trainings, etc., as well as other funding opportunities for school districts. The first thing to touch on today, and we just have a handful of slides here to just touch on some things before we get into our demo. The first thing to note is that the Form 470 deadline is 28 days before the 471 deadline. So this year's Form 471 is due March 28th of 2023. That means 28 days before that, the 470s are due. So that is February 28th of this year. So we have another week or so, week and a couple of days to get that filed. If you find today when you are filing your 471 that there is something that you've forgotten to apply for, there is still time to file that 470. So that is good news. If you have not waited your 28 days since filing your 470, there will come a point in the process where you can't move forward with us hands-on. You're still welcome to join along and watch what we're doing and then follow the video later and or join another workshop, but know that you must wait 28 days before your 470 to file a 471. For those of you who are in a multiple year agreement, if you are in year 2 or 3 of a contract, we will be citing the first year of your 470 from the first year that you signed that contract. So it's okay if you're in a multiple year contract. We will show you how to do that in the demo today. But know if there are new products and services that you're seeking this year, you must wait 28 days before you file the 471. At least it can be more. These are the workshops that we're doing this year for the 471. Note that we are here today on February 21st, but there are a couple of dates that we still have available in March. If there is something missing or something where you need to rejoin us, you can join on either March 7th or 9th. I believe that's a Tuesday and a Thursday here in a couple of weeks. There are also some ROE hosted events. We had 4 of them and registration was down on 1, so we're now down to 3. There is a face-to-face event on Thursday in Vandalia that serves the ROE3 area. They're hosting that one. And then another event March 13th in Mount Vernon that serves that area. So if you're interested in coming to a face-to-face workshop, there are a couple hosted by ROEs that I'm coming in to present for. Today, we're doing our 471, and I've mentioned that we have to wait 28 days at least between the 470 and the 471. So I hope most of you are there. In addition to that, after you receive and file your 471 today, do not be surprised if it is assigned to a reviewer who reaches out to you within the next 24 to 48 hours. We are seeing a very quick turnaround time on PIA review this year, so it will go into review almost immediately. You may or may not get questions about your form. For those of you who are in multiple year contracts, I'm seeing several where they asked you questions in previous years, and if all of their checks and boxes are met, they're just sending those right on to Wave Ready. So we have a lot of ongoing contracts that are already sitting in Wave Ready. For those of you who are filing for new products and services this year, so far, the most common request is for validation of your student counts and free and reduced levels. So that request will be sent to Eric Grocke, and we'll talk about that on an upcoming slide. But that is the biggest request that we're seeing though so far. Once you receive your funding commitment letter, that usually comes in May or after, so we'll see what that timeline looks like this year, you need to file a 486 to confirm services. When you do get that letter, please do check both of the documents on that letter. There's like a form letter and a spreadsheet that says what you were funded for, and please ensure that you were funded for everything you expected. We did have a few school districts last year who got that letter. The letter is very positive in nature and kind of hints at, here's your funding commitment letter, congratulations. And we had a couple of schools that actually did not get the funding, and there was a 0 in the line for funding, and thought that they were good and moving forward and lost that opportunity. We did gain it back, but lost that opportunity to come back to the FCC or to USAC and say, hold on a second, why did you 0 fund me? There's actually a 60-day time frame from receiving that letter or the start of services to come back and say, I think you've made a mistake here, let's revisit this again. So please do take a look at those forms when you get them. Be prepared to file that 486. It's technically not due until the end of October, but most people file it as soon as they receive that funding commitment letter and get it off their plate. Lastly, you do have an option as a school district or library to choose if you are going to pay your bill the whole time and then ask USAC directly for the reimbursement to you by filing the 472 bear. Or if you want to get discounts on your bills and only pay your non-discounted share, and then the company that you're working with will go out and bill USAC for the E-rate discounted portion. And that's the 474 SPY. So please do communicate with your providers when you get funded to tell them which method you choose to go with. Do we have any questions from the field on the forms or where we are or what to expect next on the forms? Okay, I hope I've given that my good teacher pause. Going forward, like I said, PIA review will start right away. If they ask you for third-party verification, that is a letter from ISB. So a lot of school districts have tried to produce something from IWAS or something from their local student management system that says, here's proof of my free and reduced lunch rates, because that's what it's asking you for. But what USAC actually wants is an email, is an email from your state official, which is Eric Grocke in this case. So do jot down his email address. It is just egrocke, Grauke, at isb.net. He has been readily issuing those requests as he receives them. Will reply to you with an email an email and or document that you can attach and give to USAC to meet that requirement. So again, most common thing we're seeing at right now. Do look at both of those documents when you get your funding commitment letter, and don't forget to file the 486 form. If you do forget to file it, you will have an emergency reminder email towards the end of October that says, it looks like you forgot to file this form. And then you freak out and you call me and we get it filed within that 10 days they give you. Better to not wait for the emergency reminder and to go ahead and get it filed as soon as you get your funding commitment. How many of you were waiting on or entertaining the idea of moving to the consortium this year, starting July 1st of 2023? Either raise your hand or put something in the chat. Just curious if we have anybody transitioning over and if we need to discuss any of the options. You got your bid yesterday. Excellent.
So Mindy, we were already with the consortium, but we had bought a new pre-K building after that. So, and a new unit office. So this year they put those 2 circuits out, and I
did
just
you get that bid back
Friday?
Okay,
Friday
all right.
I did, and Clearwave got both of them. So I was going to ask this question later, but I'll ask it now. I was going to go ahead. Our pre-K was using Futiva. I was going to go ahead and do my 471 with Futiva just in case Clearwave can't get started by July 1. Is that
That is exactly what I was going to ask you, and the same thing to Martin in the chat. So here's the perfect situation, right? So the perfect situation is that you're currently using a provider, and the consortium got back to you and they said, good news, we've chosen a provider for you and it's the exact same provider, right? So that's kind of the perfect scenario. However, most of you are getting what we call a bundled lit service from your existing provider, which means they have the line and they're providing it with their internet. I may be simplifying the process, but I don't think it would take much on their end to switch you over to consortium internet at that point. They're just going to plug you into a different box in their data center so that you're getting internet from the consortium. If you have a different provider, like Stephanie just described, and a new provider has been chosen for one of your locations, and you do want to still move forward with that consortium option, I would really encourage you to file what they're calling bridge services on their webinars, and I'm calling transitional services. So hopefully you filed a 470 and asked for bids as a plan B. And now, even if you're choosing to go with the consortium, we'll do a month-to-month request for ongoing service at that pre-K building that Stephanie was talking about.
Yes.
So that way she can, if there is a transition over and say they aren't live and ready to go as of July 1st, but it's August or September before they do that, then you can continue to get discounts on your existing service from E-rate until that time of turnover. They're really going to try to get everybody turned over by July 1st. And they've had some pretty good record with that, but there were a handful of districts last year where there was a delay and they did not have a plan B in place. They didn't have those transitional services filed. And so they had to unfortunately had to pick up the entire cost of the bill until that transition took place. So we're trying to make sure that doesn't happen to anyone this year.
When we originally switched to the consortium, there was quite a delay because we went from Clearwave to Frontier, and I think it was like 3 months. So I was really glad that I did it then. And right now with Futiva, I'm month to month anyway. So I think it's going to be a pretty easy do, won't it, for the 471?
It should be, yes, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. You are the exact example that I wanted to go over here on this slide. Martin, in the chat, you're saying you applied for the transitional service, okay, and your current provider has already agreed to do the transitional service. So that's excellent. So they've chose a different provider for you than you currently have, and that's fine as well. So
yeah, so we're all good on that.
Okay, excellent. So if anyone else finds yourself in the questioning right now where you're like, I saw the bid that we got last Friday or yesterday when you got back from the long weekend, and you're not sure if that's the direction you want to go. I have received a couple of those emails this morning, like, they chose somebody different for us. We get our phones. I'll just give you the name of the people, not the school, but the provider. So this particular district has a Clearwave contract existing. They also get their phones and everything from Clearwave. The bid that they received back from their 470 was really competitive. The consortium chose a different provider for them. And this is a 90% district. They're doing the math and they're saying, we're going to have an increase in our cost of phones because that's going to stay on the Clearwave contract. And so we're doing the math to see if it's a better financial plan for us to move forward with the consortium and have our increase in phones, or whether it is to stay with the contract with Clearwave, pay our 10% and not have a change in phones. So they're doing some math. If you find yourself in that situation and you want to talk it through with me, just drop me an email. I would be happy to do that in a meeting. Again, we'll do a month-to-month transitional service, bridge service at example for Martin and Stephanie in the examples that we get to today. For those of you who are evaluating bids, so first and foremost, any bid that you received that did not give you a price for the products that you requested is not really a bid. So I know of a company that sent out a lot of bids this year that said, this is in response to your 470, and here's a laundry list of all the wonderful things that our company can give you. Reach out to us if you want a specific bid. Well, what they were supposed to do was reply to your 470 with a specific bid. So in that instance, that is not a complete bid. However, I would hold on to it in case there is a complaint ever saying you didn't consider their bid or et cetera, that you can say, look, this is all I received from them. It was an incomplete bid. Some people are adding to their bid evaluation something that says complete bid down here as another category, and giving points to those who had a complete bid, who gave them what they asked for, and then giving 0 points to those who gave them a bid that was a different product or didn't give them an actual bid with a price at all. So know that you can add that to your bid evaluation if you choose to. In the example that I have here, there were 3 bids on category 2 services. So we asked for, we're just going to give it an example of a firewall. So we asked for a firewall and we gave points to the following categories. So the first thing that was more than anything else is cost. So even if this was 21 points, it still would be more than the others, and that would meet the needs. For the ease of math, I just made it half the points. Underneath that, we have ineligible components, meaning they did not exactly give me what I wanted. So I'd have to make some changes in my network to fit that product in. And you can give 10 full points for they gave me exactly what I wanted, and 0 points for they gave me nothing that I wanted, and I'm going to have to make a bunch of changes. So that's what this next line looks like. Again, experience with the vendor and local provider are something that I see commonly on these reviews. It allows you to give a little leverage to people that you have a working relationship with. So in this instance, you can see here that if we went just by cost, the cheapest bid that we received was bid A. So if we only evaluated by cost, bid A would be our winning bid. However, by taking these other elements into consideration, we see that bid B actually has a much higher score than bid A. So even though bid A was the cheapest, they didn't necessarily give us the name brand we wanted. Also, we really haven't worked, they're not local, and we really haven't done a lot of work with them in the past. So that made the school district just a little bit nervous to move forward with that cheaper bid. They were more comfortable with the provider from bid B. And then again, bid C, they have a little bit of experience with the vendor, and it is a local person, but it's a newer company, and they didn't give you at all what you asked for. So say they asked for a Cisco firewall solution, and what they got back was a I'm trying to come up with another sonic wall firewall solution. And so we really don't have a lot of experience with that particular brand. It wasn't what we asked for, and come to find out there are some other things on our network that we would need to make that operative. So that's kind of what it looks like here. These bid evaluations need to be on hand anytime you receive more than one bid. So when we get into the system and we enter our contract records for the products that you're purchasing, it's going to say to you, how many bids did you get for this contract? And if you say more than one, they are expecting you to have this bid evaluation somewhere on hand. There is nowhere for you to upload or attach this bid evaluation. You're just supposed to have it ready if USAC asks you for it. They're also going to ask you what was the date that you selected your bid. If you had your 28 days a couple weeks ago, you put it together, you did an evaluation, and you awarded it a couple weeks ago, that's the date that you should be using. If today is the day that you're evaluating them, that's totally fine. So we can put it down as today's date, and today is the day that you filed the 471. Obviously, you can't file the 471 and then select a vendor later, so it has to be before today and anytime after that 28-day window. Again, as long as you can provide this to USAC when they ask for it, you are okay. Some people put it in like a Google Doc or a Word document. Some people draw it out on a piece of paper and scan it in and scan it as a PDF with a scanner. I've even seen somebody use a napkin and write it down on the napkin that we had in a face-to-face training and then scan that when they got back to the district. So USAC doesn't really care what format you have that in, as long as you do have it and can provide it to them upon request. Any questions or comments about bid evaluation or anything here on the screen that's confusing to you? Lastly, there is no need to compare your cost of your bids and who you've chosen for your internet, for your plan B, to what the consortium has. Like, there's no requirement to compare one to the other. You are either welcome to move forward with the consortium and tell them that, or you are welcome to move forward on your own and tell them that, or do the consortium and use yours as transitional. There's no one that says, hey, I need to get the figures from the consortium and run the cost, et cetera. Those are two entirely separate bidding processes. So there's no need to compare one to the other. You just have a choice as a district. Do you like the provider they've given you, and are you ready to move forward? For category 2, for those of you applying for category 2, we are in a 5-year funding cycle. We did a demo in our 470 workshops of the E-rate tool to see how much money you have left. In that cycle, we are applying for year 3, which means the 23-24 school year is our year 3. We'll have 2 more years to spend the rest of that money. This is just a reminder. And if you want to see a demo of that tool, it is linked in the YouTube channel that we have for the LTC under E-rate demos. So there is an E-rate demo playlist, and we have those 470 workshops that are there. And I did time mark them with the specific areas, and you can take a look at that category 2 budget link from either one of those 2 videos. Okay, lastly, you do have to wait your 28 days, which I've said multiple times. You do need to get a contract. So if there is a bid that you are moving forward with today, and you have not signed and dated that bid to say today is the day you chose them, or you have not commented back to your chosen provider and said, hey, I'm moving forward with your bid, you need to do so. What E-rate would like to see is a bid that is, or a contract that is signed and dated by you and by the provider prior to clicking submit on your form. That's what they would like to see. They will take a signed or an agreement statement from you saying, yes, this is the bid that I have chosen. I will provide it to you in PIA review, and they will ask you for it. So they are going to want something that is signed and dated and shown that you chose it after that 28-day window. So please do get a contract. Also, many of the providers, when you contact them to say, hey, CDW, for example, we are ready to move forward with you. Yours was our chosen bid out of the evaluation process. They will come back to you and say, hey, here is a statement of, we will hold the price for you until this date, and we agree to this and you agree to that, like a signature page that they are wanting to get from you. So please know that many of the providers do have that in play. They're going to want a signature page back and forth for you. That will also need to be provided to USAC. If you move forward with creating your contracts today, it's a little bit tricky. To submit the information on the contract and move forward and attach it to your form, you have to submit and be ready to go. You are welcome to attach a copy of your contract, either a blank one with no signatures or not attach one at all. So you can either attach nothing, you can attach a blank one with no signatures, or in a perfect world, you would attach a contract approved bid with signatures and dates. The deal is, if you go with the latter, right, the contract all the way signed, etc., PIA review may not ask you any questions about it. They'll see all your documentation there and they'll be ready to move forward. If you go with the very first example of attaching nothing, it is likely that PIA review will reach back out to you and say, hey, can you give me a copy of that signed agreement? So no, that's where we are in our contracts. There is no way to do the contract, attach it to the form, and then go back in and edit it later. So that's tricky. You have to decide today, are you going to submit and move forward with what you have, or are you going to gather the information and then submit it once you have that information? It's totally up to you, and we can go one way or another, but know that you do want to communicate with your vendors. In addition to communicating with your chosen vendors, it is also politically correct and polite to communicate with your vendors that weren't chosen, and just reply in an email to them and thank them for their bid. Tell them they were not chosen in your bidding process, but you will consider them for other work with the district as it comes about. That is the polite thing to do, and I encourage you to communicate with those vendors and not leave them hanging and wondering whether or not they received your contract and your work. Again, cover the bases. We have talked to a couple of examples for the consortium, and that's really what that meant there. Make sure that you do the forward-thinking transitional services to cover you until you're ready for the consortium to take over your contract. Few tips and tricks to point out. We are going to file different 471s for different categories. So if you have a category 1 internet access form to fill out today, we're going to do that as our first example. We have to file an entirely different 471 for category 2 then. You can't do category 1 and 2 on the same like you can for the 470. So we're going to do 2 examples, a category 1 and then a category 2. In particular for category 2, if you bid out for a bunch of products and you've decided to buy 3 things from one vendor and 4 from another, those have to be separate funding requests on that form. So we'll have a different funding request for each provider and a different funding request for each category. So even if you received the same provider for all, but 3 of the items are stuff, so internal connections, and another one of those items is support or management for those internal connections, they will be also filed as separate FRNs. You can claim the same contract on both of those different funding requests in that example. So we have to kind of separate it out as we are filing our forms. We're going to first do our contracts. So we're going to go through an example of what it looks like to fill out the contract information, attach the document, submit it, and have it done. And then we're going to take a little break so that you guys can enter your other contracts, probably just 5 to 10 minutes. And then we'll move on with our form examples today. Again, it looks a little tricky in the form. It's a little better this year, in my opinion, than what has been in years past. The narrative language at the top of each page kind of explains it a little better. But you'll have a chart that is for funding requests. And then inside that chart for funding requests, each and every item on your bid listed as different funding lines. And you number those with the funding number .001, .002, .003. Some of you will have a bid that you've received. This is the total amount for the whole project. And so it's $20,000 for this whole wiring project, where other people receive a bid from a provider where it's like, this is the wiring project and the wiring is $10 and the face plates are another $50 and the labor is another $102, right? And so you add all of those up. Each one of those, if each thing has a dollar amount on the bid that you're looking at, each thing has to be entered as a separate line item. So we'll really give a good example of what that looks like with the 470 because we seem to have a lot of people doing wiring projects this year. I'm going to walk you through the process of putting in your contracts now. There is no need for you to have this step-by-step slide share unless there's a contract you're not ready to add today. And I just wanted to give you a cheat sheet about what we're going to click on and do in case you wanted to use this slide as direction for uploading contracts after today. So this is step-by-step what we're getting ready to do. And we're going to go into the demonstration. So I am going to go to usac.org and you are welcome to follow along on your end. And we're going to get logged into the system. So I'm going to click sign in on the USAC page. And we're going to say continue because yes, I will follow all the rules. And I'm actually going to log in today under an account that was given to me by Hudsonville Schools so that we can see a school example because my state coordinator account, which is what we were logged in under before, doesn't look the same as yours. And so I want to make sure that you guys can follow along with what that looks like. So I'm going to click the box to accept and click sign in. Little tip, if you're not in here very often, you'll either have text or email. Some of you just see the email. You're going to want to select which mechanism to get your code for the two-party authentication. And then you do have to click the send passcode link. I have people checking their email too early. So make sure you see a green checkbox square that says the passcode has been sent. And then go check your email or device, etc. Checking my watch. And I'm going to put in the code that I received and verify. If you hit enter on your keyboard instead of clicking enter, sometimes you get 2 rapidly in a row. So note that. In addition to that, sometimes if it's time to change your password, now it's forcing you to do so. So I'm just tap dancing for a minute in case anybody's been forced to change their password as you all get signed in. Once you get signed in, you'll be on this main dashboard page, and most of you will see 3 squares or buttons in the middle. The EPC, which we are going to use today, the ECF portal, for those of you who leveraged those stimulus funds in the past, and the third box down is the bear form. If you have access to the bear, you will see a third box there. Each one of those boxes, which are really light gray, you hardly can tell that they're even hyperlinks until you hover over them. And so you're going to go to the top EPC box, make sure that those letters turn blue, and click there. And this is our main applicant landing page that we are used to seeing. So again, your code, the top square, and then the landing page. From this page, we are going to first enter our contracts. Hopefully, we will be giving you enough time to enter all of the contracts that you have moving forward. For our 2 school districts that are doing transitional services, unless you have some sort of a signed agreement saying we will give you month-to-month services, or we will give you up to 12 months of service, etc., you may enter those as month-to-month contracts, meaning at any point you can cancel those contracts. So you do not have to enter a contract for those lines unless you have something in writing that you want to go ahead and attach it as a contract. That's fine. Most people do not for month-to-month services. For the rest of you entering into a new internet contract or accepting a new bid from a provider for category 2, the way we enter contracts is to go to the district information page. There are 2 places on this landing page to link to that. The first one is right here under the logo where it says welcome, ! And your school district is linked there. The other on this page is under the My Entities, and you're going to choose the school district link. So click on a link from one of those 2 places, and this is the school district information page. In the submenu, there are several links here. You can check your category 2 budget, you can check your discount rate, etc. And there is one for contracts. So we're going to go ahead on this information page and click contracts in the submenu. It will give you a list of submitted contracts. Your list may not be as huge as this one. As you can see, there's a whole bunch of little practice contracts in here because I have been using Hudsonville as my example school. In order to add a new contract, you have to click on Manage Contracts from the upper right-hand corner. So again, we went from the main landing page, choose the district. From the district, we click on Contracts. And from Contracts, we click on Manage Contracts in the upper right. And then the last step to beginning our contract process is to click the blue link of Add a New Contract. I'm going to pause and see if I've lost anyone. All right, excellent. So the first thing that we're going to do is name your contract. This is a perfect place to go ahead and put your winning provider. So I'm going to go Charlie Inc. And then I'm going to say switches. FY23-24. And so I put the year in here because I maybe bought some switches last year from Charlie Inc. And I want to be able to tell by the name which year I'm talking about. If you have a contract number, and if you would like to type it in, you can do so. It is not required. There is no asterisk there. So not required, but if you have one, you're welcome to enter it. And then we're going to say save and continue. When you do, you will notice that here in the created contract name up here, they have assigned it a contract ID. This contract ID number is what USAC will call it from their side. So they are calling it the number. You are calling it the name that is before the number so that you can clearly delineate which one it is. This is important if you are doing re-signing another 3-year contract for your internet. I would have said in the name, 23, 24, 3-year contract or something like that. So we can clearly see when a new contract is due. It then asks you, would you like to upload a copy of your contract? If you have a signed and dated document and you would like to upload it, you would say yes and click upload. Again, if you would like to upload the document that you have that's not signed and dated, you're welcome to do so, but you will likely be asked for a signed and dated one in PIA review. So I'm going to say, yes, I would like to upload a document. And I'm just going to show you guys what that looks like. I have a little fake contract document here. And I'm going to upload it. Then over on the right, you do have to have a description. So in this case, I can say 5 switches. Let's do 5 24 port switches from Charlie Inc. Again, this is another good place if you're signing a multiple year contract for internet that you would note 3 years of internet, or if you were doing a month-to-month agreement, something like that. If you do not have a document, I'm going to delete that one and say no. Again, you can still move forward without a document. Go ahead and click save and continue. And there's several questions here that we're going to answer on the next 2 pages that are all no. So this first one says, is this a state master contract or based on a multiple award schedule? The answer to both of those questions is no. Continue. Can other applicants piggyback off of this contract? If that was the case, it would say so in your narrative. I've yet to see one. If it was originally signed from someone else and you're piggybacking off of it is the next question. Again, no and no. So the previous page, both were no, and this page, both are no as well. Click save and continue. And then it says, was a 470 posted? So the answer to that is yes. And again, this is where they're checking to see if you waited your 28 days and how many bids you received. So over here on the right, it says how many bids were received. And I'm going to pretend this was my example from the slide deck. So I got 3 bids. They are expecting by me entering 3 there that I do have a bid evaluation somewhere on hand. If I'm asked for it, I will provide it. If you honestly just received 1 bid, so like I talked to a school district this morning that was looking for a repair on their fiber lines that they own, and they, as of today, only received 1 bid. So they were going to go forth with that bid as they filed their 471. Putting in a 1 is okay. If that 1 bid is the only one that you've received, please do kind of check the market. Especially if it's for category 2 products, do a quick search for that particular switch or item that you're asking for and make sure that it's not an escalated cost. We did have a handful of school districts last year that got denied because the switch, they only got 1 bid for their switches and they moved forward with it. But unbeknownst to the school district, the cost of the switch was more than 3 times what they would have found it for if they went to search it on CDW. So please know it does still have to be a reasonable bid. On this page now, as we scroll down, it says, what 470 did you file? Which one are you linking this to? You do not have to enter any information under search by or partial name. If you have it, that's fine. You can, but it already has your district bid number entered. So just by clicking search on the right, you'll see all the 470s in this system for your school district. There was this question here in the middle. If you were claiming a contract from before 2016, this just indicates to them it's not in the system and they'll have to ask you for it. But most of us are past the 2016 contract signing. So once you've clicked search, it will show you all of the 470s for your district. Each of these columns is sortable. So I would go to funding year and click that a couple of times to get it to bring the newest ones to the top. And you're probably going to go ahead and choose the one from this year. So you can see we have one for Hudsonville for basic maintenance and internal connections. If you have a couple from this year and you're applying for internet access, you're going to want to make sure that the designation over here says internet access. Going to click save and continue. Again, if you have an account number, you can enter it there. And down below, we have another search. And this search tool is looking for the provider. So most people go ahead and search by name. I'm going to put Charlie Inc. and click search. Maybe I'll just try Charlie and click search. Okay, there we go. Notice it's very finicky. I had to say Charlie, comma Inc. if I wanted that to work right. For those of you who are Clearwave users and you're looking for Clearwave, it is actually called Delta in the system. For those of you who are looking for Metro, it is an MCC. If you have any other questions, I can help you look them up. If you're CDWG, you'll probably likely find it under just CDW. And worst case scenario, if you can't find it, please go back to the bid that they sent you. Most providers do say we are, here's our SPIN number right at the top of the paragraph of their response to you. So you can always put in the SPIN number, take out the words and put search. Anybody having any trouble finding their chosen provider? Okay, fantastic. So once you've indicated which one is your provider, click Save and Continue. And it says, is this a multiple year contract? In this case, this is just for products. So this is not a multiple year contract in category 2. If you are a school that is signing a multi-year contract and you say yes, then we're going to put the end date here in the next page, I believe. So I'm going to say, no, this is not a multiple year contract. And the date that I awarded my contract was the 14th of February. So last week we evaluated on Valentine's Day and chose our winning bids. We've gotten signatures from Charlie Inc., told them we were moving forward with them, told the others that we are not moving forward with them, but thank you for their bid. And we are ready to go here on the 21st to move forward. If you choose today, that is totally okay. If you attempt to choose tomorrow, it will say you cannot add a date in the future. And if you choose a date that is too early, it will give you a little warning, not in red, which I wish it was in red, to say that is not the end of your 28-day waiting period. Are you sure? So put in your date that you chose your contract and click Save and Continue. It says, does this contract include voluntary extensions? This is not something I saw in previous years, but I'm starting to see it more frequently. So I see school districts signing a contract for maybe 3 years with 2 years of available extensions. So it could be a 3-year contract or it could be a 5-year contract. If your contract states that there are a couple of years of voluntary extensions, then you're going to want to say yes. And then it'll say, what is the total end of the contract if you used all of the extensions? So you'd want to count 5 years out in my example. If you do not see that in the contract, then you're going to want to go ahead and say no. A couple other questions on that. It does say how many extensions are left. So many people signed a contract before. They've got a couple of extensions left. They forgot to note that on the original. So they're putting in the proof and putting the contract back in now to cover that next extension year. That's why you are asked how many extensions are left and what is the total remaining length. So they're really just trying to make sure that you did an open bidding process, that you were fair, and that there was actual narrative on your contract that allow you to extend without bidding back out. Trying to keep it fair for everyone bidding on your contracts. If the narrative was not in your contract that you originally signed, you need to file a 470 and go back out to bid. Save and continue. There are no super secret pricing rules in the state of Illinois. So no on that one. And then it gives you the information for the total contract page. Again, check and make sure it's the right 470 number if you can. Check and make sure you have the right service provider listed and check that award date just one last time before you click complete. If there are some changes or if there's something you're not sure about here or you want to go back and upload a document, right? You can click save and close. But if you do, it will not let you attach it to your 471. You can only attach to a 471 something that is complete. So this is that point where you decide, I want to go forward with a complete project and not have an attachment, or I kind of want to push pause, follow along with Mindy today, get that signed agreement, and then move forward following the video to file later. I am going to say cancel because I don't need yet another example in the system. And it takes me back to the contract page. So my time clock says it's 12:53. I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to grab a soda, to enter your additional contracts. We're going to take a little bit of a break for 7 minutes and we'll reconvene together at 1 o'clock with our category 1 example. So it'll give you a minute to put your contracts in and we'll see you in a few. Okay, welcome back, everybody. I hope that was enough time to finish up your contracts. Again, we'll have some time at the end of our demos here to do some additional contracts, answer some initial questions, etc. But if you're done doing your contracts, in order to get back to the landing page and move forward, we're going to go ahead and we're going to click on reports from the blue menu at the top, and then my applicant landing page, and that'll take us back to the main page. Just a couple of things before we move forward. I'm going to go ahead here and show you guys my final screen here on the slide deck. Again, the bit.ly for this presentation is bit.ly/capital LTC 471 FY23. So that's this presentation. We do have a shortcut link to the E-rate page on the LTC site as well, and it is for ltc.org.erate. As we go back to our demonstrations, we are going to do a couple different 471 demos. So get to my landing page. We're going to do a 471 for internet access, and we're going to do a couple different examples there. One will be month-to-month transitional services. Another line for ongoing middle of the contract and show you how to access that and where to click that easy button. And that will also be our same example for a new ongoing contract. So we're going to show you a few things there in that category 1 example. The slides at the beginning of the 471 and at the end of the 471 are exactly the same, no matter what category. So the places where we validate what our discount level is and all of the certifications are going to be the same. So those of you who are joining us for category 1 and then don't have a category 2, you will not hurt our feelings when you jump off in between. Those of you who are doing a category 2 with us and have several things to enter, the certifications are exactly the same. So if you're feeling pretty comfortable with it and you want to jump off, that's fine. You can go start entering things on your own. We'll stop the recording, but I will keep the room open and answer questions as long as somebody is in there and active with me. So let's kick off with our 471 for Cat 1. From the main landing page, we're going to choose 471 from the upper right-hand side, and that will start us a new form. And we're here on the basic information page, and it says, what do you want to nickname this? So typically I see school districts with some abbreviation or the whole name of the district. In this one, we do HUT for Hudsonville, 471, FY, and the years that it's serving. Again, I like the 23-24, so we know what school year that is. It is funding year 23 for E-rate, but it is fiscal year 24 for ISB, and that gets a little confusing. So I like to put the whole school year there, and we're going to get Cat 1 internet access. So we're going to be real clear on what this is for. Some school districts, our larger ones, might do one for internet access and might do like a separate one for a WAN connection between their buildings or something. You would be welcome to put both of those on the same if you choose to. So how many 471s you do and how you break them up are up to you. I do sometimes see separate ones for like special contracts. Like I would do if you have a fiber build, I would do a separate 471 for that, and then it won't hold up your other requests. Are you the main contact person? Congratulations, you're here, you are. If you are one of our lucky recipients who gets to retire this year, or you know you're leaving the district for some reason, this is a great place here in the holiday summer contact information to put an alternative contract. We also have some people who are not 12-month employees, and in the summer they operate off of a cell phone or something. So if you won't have access to your phone number and or email from school, you can enter an alternative contact right there. Save and continue is in the bottom right. So we're going to click on that. And this one, for our example, is going to be category 1. Notice there is only one subcategory in category 1, data transmission and internet access. So it's all grouped together. Save and continue again. This is where we're just going to see some screens. Unfortunately, there's not something that can be changed here, but if you see something that is dramatically different, you can make a note of it and we can put a thing or a comment in our narrative box to fix it. So for example, this is actually correct. It's a very small school district with only 300 students, but if I had 800 students and that was a typo, it would be something I would want to note moving forward. On the next page, you'll see both school buildings, and the school buildings will have a total of the students in that building and a total for the category 2 budget, which is usually the same. And on the last confirmation page, it will give you your discount rate. So for those of you who are 50% or higher, you should see an 80% or higher discount rate. That's what it attributes to. If you were, I think the next cutoff is at 70, don't quote me on that. But if it's at 70, then you'll see a 90% here. For those of you who are a 90% discount rate, 85 is the max for category 2. So no, that's not a misprint. You'll have 90 here in category 1 and 85 in category 2. Again, these numbers and updates can be made each year in the system, but that is before the 471 window opens. So we tend to make those changes and updates within our 470 workshops each year. Save and continue will take us to the next page, where we will now do some work and start adding things to our chart. So this is our funding request chart. So we're going to add a new FRN and or contract, if you look at it that way. The funding request information first asks for a nickname. So I'm going to call this month-to-month internet transitional services. If you are one of the schools that is doing this today, you can put the name of the provider in there as well. That's fine. But it is going to be month-to-month internet, and I'm going to do that example first. So of course, this is month-to-month. We're not copying from a previous year, but we will do that on the next example. And the only choice down here under the service type is data transmission. So you're just putting the name in there and saying no. And then we're going to click continue to move forward. The difference between a month-to-month and a contract is that a contract links to information that we've already put in. A month-to-month, we now have to enter that information. So we're going to choose month-to-month, and we're going to say continue. The other requirement for a month-to-month is you have to have a 470 for that year. So you cannot claim month-to-month transitional services on a 470 from a previous year. It has to be one that was filed in 2023. So if you have not done that, again, there is still a week and a few days to get that filed if you need to do so. Here's where it asks how many bids were received. So if you filed a 470 this year, you have your current contract from your current provider that you're moving forward with, but you received 2 other bids. You're going to want to note that here. Maybe you didn't get any and you're just putting in the one. Was a 470 filed? You're going to say yes on that. And then again, it has your bin search. So this looks a lot like our contract module. It has your bin entered in the search. You're going to click search and you're going to choose the 470 from this year. I don't know if I'll be able to do that because this year they didn't ask for internet. They're already on the consortium. Let me see if I can choose a previous year for month to month and whether it lets me. We did internet access in 2019. See if it lets me. Okay, it did, but you're not supposed to be able to do that. So it should be 2023. We're just finding our way around the system. Again, if you have an account number, you can enter it. Most people do not, but you're welcome to. And then you've got to enter the provider here. So in this case, it is MCC. And I'm clicking on search. They use Metro Communications. MCC is also noted as Mediacom. So there's 2 different companies there. You can notice that this one says MCC Illinois, doing business as Mediacom. There is another one that is Metro. When I see it, I'll know it. MCC Network Services in Illinois. So this one is our MediaCom partner in the state, or I'm sorry, Metro partner in the state, Metro Communications. Metro Communications Company, I guess, MCC. What is the service start date? So the service start date for this year would be 7/1 of 2023. And again, this is month-to-month service. And I know that you're hoping that you'll have your transitions all over and done within a couple of months, but I want to give you the whole year just in case, right? So they may come back to you in PIA review and kind of say, when do you think it'll be ready? And what are we looking at, and that kind of thing, and try to get you to break it down to like a 6 months. But I think let's start at the entire 12 months, and you can tell them, I'm really not sure. I'm not sure when that transition will take place, and I just don't want to have a cost that I have to do a lot of post-commitment changes. So we're going to do 2024, and I could have also used the calendar there. And I don't want 12, I want 6/30 of 2024. So that gives us the whole year. Month-to-month services. It says, is there any super secret pricing rules in Illinois? Again, just like our contracts, no, there is not. And then lastly, does this have any special construction, maintenance, or network equipment? And I have yet to see a month-to-month that would have that. So you're going to say no. I'll explain a little further what those are in the next example. There is a narrative. You do have to put something in the narrative. So for those of you who are doing month-to-month transitional services, I would say that. While transitioning over to Illinois DoIT Consortium services, or Illinois Century Network, state network, or something like that. I just want it to be very clear to your reviewer that it's not double dipping, that you're asking for this to cover the months where you're not over there, but you may not even move forward with this if it's up and going by July 1st. The word transitional services tells them that this is kind of a special situation. It's not like you're just moving forward month to month because you didn't sign a contract. Once you have something in the narrative, you're going to click Save and Add Manage Line Items in the blue box. And this is our second chart. So I mentioned in my slide deck, there are two charts. There's one for the FRN, or the funding request, and there's another for the funding request line items. And so we're going to add a new line item. And the first questions that it asks is, what kind of internet is this? So if you are using bundled internet, which it sounded like from the conversation we had earlier, both of you are, it would be the top. So that is a bundled internet service. To kind of run through the rundown for the rest of these, if you get your transport from one provider and your internet from another, it's listed differently. And we'll do that example in our next FRN. And lastly, if you have just a transport connection between your buildings. So some people pay an amount to the provider for the internet access from, like, say, the high school, and then they pay a separate amount to connect their middle school to their high school. So that could be a separate line. So one line for the bundled and then another line for that connection between buildings. So we're going to move forward with the bundled example here. And down under function, it wants to know, how is this service being delivered? For most people, it is being delivered over fiber. If you happen to know that that is a copper line or a wireless line, then you would obviously want to note that. So we're going to move forward with fiber. And then on the type of connection, it gives you an exorbitant amount of choices here. All of these DS123s, the OC31224, these all have a specific speed that they designate as one of those connections. So I would like you to scroll down and choose Ethernet, which is a terrible name for it. It really should be least lit fiber here. But I want you to choose Ethernet because that will allow us to dictate on the next page what your speeds are. So we're going to say save and continue. And then over here in the speeds, we're going to say for this particular district, they have 500 megabits. And it's going to populate in both places, the download and the upload. If you are a district that does not have the same speed up and down, and you have like something that you're looking at that says 200/50 or something like that, the higher number typically is the download speed, with the lower number being the upload. Again, if you go to 1,000 megabits, that's the same thing as a gigabit. So you're welcome to put 1 gigabit instead of 1,000 gigabits. And lastly, over on the right here, it asks you, is this contract covering burstable bandwidth? It does need to be outlined in your contract to do so. And if you say yes, it will ask you a couple more questions about what can you burst up to and how long can you burst, and et cetera. It would be outlined in your contract if you do have that feature. Going to click save and continue, and it should take us now to the funding page. Oh, no, some questions first. So these questions we need to read and answer each one. The first one asks, is this for a single school or library? And in this case, it is not. This internet access does serve both buildings of our school district. So the high school, and then we own the connection to the grade school back behind. And down below, is this a connection between buildings? And like I said, sometimes you have a connection to the world, which would be the first one would be answered no. And then down here, we would answer, oh, there we go. Down here, we would answer yes. I don't think it will let you do a no and a yes, but we'll see. Let me try it. I think it errored out at me last time. No, it does. Okay. So if this is one cost that allows you to do a connection between buildings as well as this, that's fine. In this case, Hudsonville owns that connection between buildings. So I'm going to go ahead and say no for that. I'm still watching the chat and the little windows to see if anybody's raising their hand or anything. So slow me down if you need to. And now we're going to put in our monthly reoccurring cost. And just for easy math, I'm going to use, it's $1,000 a month and 0 on the next line because all of that is eligible. In category 1 internet access, everything is eligible for your internet as long as it's serving your district on campus. That also includes any kind of internet that would be shared on campus to athletic facilities or parking lots that you like want to open up your wireless access there in the parking lot for students who want to come and connect to your internet and do homework of an evening. Many schools did start that service through the pandemic, so that is allowable. What is not allowed or what needs to be cost allocated out is if you are sharing that internet out with other places of your community. So we do have a handful of school districts in the state who are entertaining the idea of wirelessly projecting their internet over to a neighboring park or park district for an after-school program or to provide as an access for the community after school hours. If you're choosing to do that and you're sharing it past the school boundaries, then you are supposed to be tracking how much of that internet you're sharing and cost allocating it. So of the handful of schools that are doing that this year, they have put a monthly amount in here. I think the school district determined it to be 3%. So out of this total, that would be just $300 that they are taking off. That's 30%. So that would be $30 that they're taking off of each bill. So again, you can calculate and do that if you wish to, but you'll need to cost allocate that portion. The most common mistake I see on this form is people putting a 12 in monthly quantity because you think monthly quantity means number of months, but then they usually come to their senses when they see that the total cost over here on the right-hand side says $144,000 a year. So really the monthly quantity is how many lines is this? So that is just one line at $1,000 a month will total to $12,000 for the year. Over on the right-hand side, it says, what is your one-time cost? If you have a one-time cost for installation, I would really like to see that on a different line, and I'll show you how to put that in. If you don't have a one-time cost, it would be 0. All zeros over here on the right, which is what we normally see. And again, it calculates your 12,000 down here. So I'm going to click save and continue. And it says, who is this for? This is for every building in the district. If you were our example at the break that said, hey, I got a different provider for a different school, and you decided to move forward with that contract for the one provider, you could say no here and say this is just internet for that particular grade school. So you do have the option of saying that. It says, okay, yes, I want all. Save and continue. And then it just confirms it on the next page, and we'll click save and continue again. And that is that line item number. If you have a line on your bill, then I'm going to click on internet access for taxes and fees. That is under miscellaneous. So you're going to choose the type of internet, miscellaneous, and then you can do taxes and fees. So that is a separate line. We have several districts that have reported that they get charged like a taxes or a fee of like $5 a month or something for an access fee that they have not been claiming. That is eligible for the program. You just want to list it as a separate line. Again, if you have a one-time cost each year or at the beginning of a contract for installation, that is also eligible here as well. So if you have a separate line on your form, some people will say, hey, I paid this for internet access, and then I also paid for like a specific number of dedicated IP addresses. Like that's a separate line on the bill. So you could put that in as well under taxes and fees. Though I did have somebody the other day that they said the PIA reviewer bundled it back up into that dollar amount and changed it from 1,000 to 1,005 or whatever that was a month. So from the description that I have heard from USAC, if it's got a separate line with a separate dollar amount, it should be separate lined on this form to align with it. If they want to bundle it at PIA review, let them. Then you have documentation that they made that decision for you. I'm going to click cancel because this example doesn't really need taxes and fees. Also, I would use, if you do have taxes and fees, I would use this opportunity to remind your provider that you are a school district and you don't understand why you have taxes and fees, and sometimes you can get them waived because you're a nonprofit. So once you have everything of the lines for that bill, you're going to click save and continue, and it's going to bring us back to our first chart. No decimal points here. This is our chart for transitional services. I'm going to do a quick example. We're going to add an FRN and do an example for a multiple year contract. So you're going to say multiple year contract from Metro. And if you were in the middle of that contract, you could say like year 2 here. I'm going to say year 1 of 3. So I'm just real clear that I'm putting in a new 3-year contract. If it is a funding request from a previous year, if last year was the first year of your contract, you're going to click yes here. And then you're going to go to a previous year's form and look up that funding request number. So you can type, it will start with a 21 or a 22, depending on what year it started. You would type in that funding request number. I would right click and save that number, because then when you go to the copy FRN magic button, you'll have to enter it one more time. So if you go that route and you're copying from a previous year and you use this copy FRN, the next page, enter that number again and hit copy. It'll tell you it's going to take a few minutes, but it's going to input all of your information this year from last year. So it's going to do a lot of the work for you. And as we follow along and enter the work for this new contract, you will just be confirming your work that it copied over. So I'm going to say, no, I do not want to copy. But those of you who have, you should now have information entered for you moving forward. So data transmission and internet access is the only option. We're going to click continue. And then it says on this page, we are putting in a contract. So you're going to click on contract and say continue. And it's going to search the system for the contracts that we entered earlier today. So it's got the district bin number here at the top. There really isn't any need for me to enter more information. I'm just going to click search, and I am going to find the contract that I entered earlier today. So here is my practice contract, but I think, oh, practice contract for Metro. Okay. There's my practice 3-year contract. You can only choose one of them. And then down here, it says, what is the service start date? So the service start date for this year is 7/1/23, and it does say underneath for this funding year. So even if this was a contract from 2019 or from 2021 or whatever, it is the service start date for this year. And what is the end of the contract expiration? So in my example, this is year 1 of a 3-year contract. So I am going to make my ending date 6/30/23. 24, 25, 26, right? So that covers me this school year, the next, and the next. So 6/30 of 2026. So you want to count out how many years it is. If you have a 5-year contract, of course, that would be 28. So start for this year, ending for the total thing. Gonna say save and continue. And if you have one of these special circumstances, either stay on the line today or reach out to me individually. The program does support special construction. So that is an installation of fiber, whether that is part of a ongoing monthly rated contract or whether that is owning that fiber yourself in a self-provision. That is an option in the program, but there are some extra hoops to jump through in the form. It also does cover maintenance and operations for fiber that you currently own or dark fiber, as well as network equipment to light that fiber. Do I have anybody on the call that needs to see examples of these to note? Excellent. If you find yourself in that situation moving forward, please do let me know. The answers are a little bit different depending on each person's situation, so it makes it a complicated example to give. For the rest of us, we're all just going to say no at the bottom, and we're going to click on continue in the bottom right-hand corner. Again, here is our narrative where we're going to say what this was for, and I'm going to say 3-year contract for internet access from Metro year 1. And if you did a copy over, it will have copied your narrative from the previous year. Please make sure if that was year 1 that you've changed this one to year 2 or whatever. So change your narrative to reflect this year. Again, we now go to our line item chart and we save and manage our line items. And I'm going to add the same kind of line items that I did before. So if I know this is a bundled internet service, I would choose the first one. In particular, for our school districts that are in the like I-39, I-80 corridor in North Central Illinois, many of you have a connection type that are the bottom 2. So you put in one line or one FRN for a connection to a network. So that's just a transport connection, and that would be the third choice. So if you know you're just paying for the transport, in most cases up there from iFiber, and then the internet access from NIUNet, those would be 2 separate lines. And I just point that out because we've got a lot of people who join us from that area of the state for these workshops. And I want to say that's totally normal for your part of the state. You would have one FRN for your transport, enter that information in that bill, and then a separate FRN for your internet access because it comes from a different provider for that line item in that bill. The mass majority of our contracts are this first one, which is internet access bundled. We again have some school districts that are using the consortium for their internet access. So they're filing with the consortium on this top one, but you have a connection that you've paid for that is just a data connection between your buildings to transport that internet throughout your buildings. Now the consortium will do both, right? So they'll give you a bid and say, this is your bid back to the world, or what they call the last mile. And this is your bid for WAN, or your connection between buildings. And a few districts have reached out to me and said, can I take one and not the other? And you absolutely can. So if you as a district want to go ahead and enter into a contract for that connection between the buildings with a provider and pay your non-discounted share for that portion of the bid, that's fine. You just need to be really clear back to ICN what you're accepting and what you're denying, so that they are aware that you are going to move forward with that internet service contract. Again, the majority of school districts choose it all and say, I want to move forward with the whole deal. But there have been some that said, hey, I want to control the connection between my buildings. I don't really like who they chose for me. I'm good with that last mile back to them. So I want part of the deal and not all of it. And that is okay as well. Again, the choice is up to you as school districts, how you want to move forward with that. Again, the same thing down here. We've got a fiber connection. And that type of connection is going to be Ethernet. And we're going to make that the same as my other example, just for simplicity. 500 megabits. No burstable bandwidth. And again, it is not a single school. It is for all schools in the network, and it does not have firewall services. School district has a separate firewall device. And just for the sake of making sure that each one looks different, I'm going to make this one 800 with my one-time fees as 0. Then we're going to save and continue, indicate which buildings it is for, which is all in this case. And again, move forward with confirming that. And I'm back to my line item chart indicated by the decimals. I'm going to click on save and continue. And now I see 2 different FRNs on my page. So if you have 2 different providers, you might see 2 FRNs here. If you have one provider for your internet and then a separate one for your transport, you might see 2 here. A lot of people just see 1 from the one provider. Please also don't get worried. This FRN calculation is after your discount level. So if I click on this 7,000, it's going to show me then this was actually 9,600, but it was taken at the 80%. So sometimes that worries people a little. They see these totals and they're like, wait, it was more than that on the previous page. We're going to click on review form 471. And it wants to know, are you sure? And at this point, we're going to say, yes, go ahead and review it for me. And it says to you, give me a few minutes. I'm going to put this together in a PDF that you can review and take a look at. If you don't want to wait right now and you want to file another one, you can go ahead, but we're going to put it in the tasks when it's ready for you. So you can find it in the blue tasks link up here, or you can just wait a minute and click on refresh, and it will show you that document. To see the document, you're going to click on that blue download document link. And for most people, I want you to go ahead and click that and download it and save a copy now. So I'm going to show you what one looks like. So this is a 471 form. It does list the school district buildings. It gives you the discount level for the district, and then it starts listing out your funding request, what kind of service and who your provider is, and then the funding line details. So I've outlined out that was the first request that I put in. And then it says for who, which is the school district, buildings, and then it gives you a total amount for that funding line. And then we're going to start all over again with our second funding request that we entered. On this printed copy, there are no certifications at the end. It's just like notice, you're done here. If you want a full one, complete with certifications that we're checking on the next page, I will show you how to get that at the end of this form. So once you've downloaded and saved a copy, you're going to click on the button that says, by checking this box, I certify, and we're going to click continue to certification. So again, these certifications are the same for category 1 as they are category 2. The top one says, yes, I am a school. The next one says, I have computers and other devices to use this internet at my school. In your chart, you're going to see the total amount you asked for, the total amount that E-rate will cover, and the total amount that will be the district's responsibility. There is a line for you to enter other non-eligible for E-rate support services. Most people leave that as 0. And it gives you the total again that will be the district's responsibility. There are 2 pull downs in the middle. You were going to say no to both of these. They say that your internet provider gave you a kickback for choosing them or filed your form for you, and that is not acceptable. So you're going to want to say no to those and continue to say, yes, I waited 28 days. Yes, I'm following all state and local laws. Yes, it's for educational purposes. Yes, that I have complied with all program rules to the best of my ability. Yes, I know my discount level can change from year to year with my poverty level. I will keep a copy of all of these records for 10 years. That is higher than the normal 5, so please note that. I am authorized on behalf of my district to file this. I am not a criminal. I know that this could contain eligible and ineligible items, and I will go through a PIA review. And then lastly, my service provider is not paying my portion of the bill for me. So once you have all of those selected, you're going to click certify. I am not, because this is a fake form. So I'm going to click back. And then I am going to edit my form and discard it because I don't want there to be a fake form here on their platform. If you're not ready to submit it yet, or you need to send it for someone else to certify and submit in your district, there is a button to do so. You can just wait, but please don't forget, it does need to be certified by March 28th. I'm going to go back to reports and my applicant landing page and see if anybody has any questions or comments about a category 1 example. All right, we're going to move on to our category 2 example. Oh, first I'll show you where to find that with the certifications. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page, you're going to want to pull up 471 and funding year 2023. And Hudsonville hasn't done theirs yet, so it's empty. I'll show you one from 2022. There we go. Had to go back a couple years. So if you've submitted the form, it should show you the application number, the name that you named it, and committed. And when you click on that application number, it gives you a status page. This is also where you can track it through the review process. You can see this one has been all the way completely committed. And down at the very bottom of the page, you can download a PDF copy, including the certifications. So if you want to print out a copy with certifications for your records, this is where you would find that. Reports and my landing page. And now I will do the example for category 2. Category 2 is a bit of a choose your own adventure. So if there's something in particular you would like to see, please do mention it in the chat or go off mute or tell me, hey, what does this look like? And I would be happy to do that. I'll just give you a generic example and then we'll go from there. FCC Form 471. And we're naming it. I'm going to make this practice. I found I sometimes forget to delete the second example. Practice 471 FY23-24 Cat 2 equipment from Charlie Inc. Again, some people name it a simpler name. That's fine as long as it means something to you. And then we're going to click Save and Continue. Again, you are the main contact person. And if you have some summer information to enter, you can enter it there. Save and Continue. And again, this one will be for category 2. So I'm going to check the category 2 box. Please note, there are 3 subcategories in category 2. The first is basic maintenance of internal connections. Basic maintenance is a fee that you pay to a provider for a certain amount of hours to work on something. So that would be like maintenance on a switch, $100 an hour, 10-hour bid, something like that. Or it can also be a license for your product. So like a license for a switch, but it needs to say maintenance for, or support for, or patches and upgrades for. Those would be considered support for that switch. If that license is described as right to use, it is an internal connection. So internal connections are all of your stuff. So switches, routers, etc. Licenses that make those operative. So right to use licenses that make your switches, etc. work. Many times when people apply for a firewall, they get internal connections for the firewall and then basic maintenance patches and upgrades for that firewall as well. So that's one contract that we'll cite twice in 2 different FRNs, one for the basic maintenance of the firewall and one for the internal connections. Most items are individually what they are and are internal connections in the program. The last subcategory is managed internal broadband services. That is when you pay someone to maintain your network for you, and you pay them typically a monthly rate. Sometimes it's paid for an annual fee. but that is maintaining your network services for you. Many school districts have those contracts with providers who come in, maintain things for them, but many times those contracts are partially for the end user devices and servers, et cetera, that are not E-rate eligible. So if that's something that you're interested in using your E-rate funding for, you want to talk to that provider and find out how much of that contract would be considered management of your network. That's the only part that would be eligible for E-rate. I have had a couple of people in the last year apply for wiring, and they thought that it was maintenance of your wiring because they were maintaining and upgrading the wiring, but that's not the case. If you are paying for items, wiring, patch panels, service to get them through your building, et cetera, that is considered internal connections. If you are paying for replacement batteries for your UPS devices, that is also internal connections. Again, it is only maintenance if it is an hourly fee for service on something or a license for patches and upgrades. That's been really confusing the last couple of years. Save and continue screens are exactly the same before. So we have our district, the buildings within our district, and then again, our discount level. And now we're getting to our FRN chart. So again, this is a little bit of a choose your own adventure. Please note that you do have a budget for Cat 2. So if you ask for services that are above and beyond that Category 2 budget, they will be coming to you in PIA review and wanting to know how you want to spend your money. So say you have $30,000 left in your budget and your bill is for $35,000, they will be asking you to designate what $5,000 will not be covering, right? Down to they'll say how much of this particular fee is, you know, over the $5,000 limit. And that might mean like a $7,000 piece of device that you say is $7,000. We're going to use E-rate funding for only $2,000 of it. And then the $5,000 will be not eligible. So they're going to get you down to the pennies and the cents of what's available in your budget. Hopefully we won't have a lot of that this year in year 3, but we will have a few districts who have reached their dollar amount. So again, you're going to add a new funding request for each provider. What I'm overwhelmingly seeing is that people choose one provider, link that contract, and then they have several line items underneath for what they're buying. So that's the example that I'm going to do. I'm going to call this stuff from CDW. Just making that up. No, it is not a previous year. It was newly bid this year in a 470. And it is internal connections. So I am getting stuff from CDW. And I'm going to connect a contract that I've already entered into the system earlier on our break. And again, it's got your district number in there. So you're just going to click search and you're going to find that contract. So let me see if I can find a practice Cat 2 contract. Here's one. And it is for CDW. It lists you the service start date on the left, and the service end date will be 6/30 of 2024. So that gives us the entire 12 months. I do understand that as soon as you can order this stuff and get your approval, most of you will go forward with purchasing that order, and that you would like to have your stuff in hand this summer so you can get it installed before school starts. We have seen a significant amount of delays in getting products this last year. So I would give yourself the entire 12 months. So from 7/1 of 23 to 6/30 of 24 to receive those products. Technically, you can put in the order for the products as early as April 1st, but you will be doing that without approval because I don't expect you'll have approval before April 1st. You do so at your own risk. Technically, you have until September 30th following this whole funding year to get it installed if you put your last date as 6/30 of 2024. So technically, you have really like, what is that? That's 18-ish months to get the services done. But the dates you're going to want to use are 7/1 and 6/30 of the respectable years. Continue. And in the narrative, stuff from CDW Core Network. Again, you could be a little bit more specific, routers and switches, wireless access points, etc. choose the blue button to move on to the save and manage your line items. And again, I'm assuming we have one provider and we have a whole bunch of stuff that we're buying from that provider. So the first thing on my list that we're buying is switches. So I'm going to click to add a new line item and I have a whole bunch of choices here and I don't see switch in the list. That's because these are kind of our categories or our types. So you're going to find switches under data distribution. Once you choose data distribution, the type of product can be chosen as switch. So sometimes you have to click around a little bit to find what it is you're trying to find. It says, is the installation included in the price? In most cases, that's no. If you're having someone install it for you, it's usually a separate line for installation, and I will show you that as part of our example. The make is going to be the brand name. So in my example, I am going to say my switches are Aruba, and the model number is A2700. I'm again just making that up. Sometimes in the switch model number, you'll have a -24. So that's like a 24-port switch or a 48-port switch, something like that. So you're going to put your make and model number. And no, I'm not leasing this equipment. I'm buying it outright. And I'm going to click save and continue. On this one, there's not a monthly fee for my switch. I'm buying it. So I'm going to say 0 on my monthly fees. And then over here under units on the left-hand side, I'm going to say each. So each of my switches on the right-hand side, the one-time cost for a switch is $500. All of it is eligible. I'm plugging my network equipment to send it across the network. And my quantity is 3. So I'm getting 3 of these switches. Sometimes people will have different kinds of switches. So they'll have this first switch and then they'll have to enter another line for the 48-port switch. Again, when I click down here, you'll see it calculates the 500 times 3, which is 1,500. On the ineligible cost, just like I gave you guys a warning about the monthly cost as it pertains to sharing your internet, I'm going to give you a warning here as well. In PIA review, if they come out and they say to you, what are you using this switch for? And you tell them you're using it for a phone system or a video surveillance system, they are going to want to cost allocate the lines that you're using for that. So these switches are meant to support your network across the network. Personally, I disagree with that. And I think a packet is a packet. And if it's distributing network across the network, they should be making all of that switch eligible. I don't care what's plugged in at the end of it. But sometimes you do get that in PIA review. Know that if you are legitimately using half of that switch for internet to the classrooms and the other half of that switch for phone systems in those classrooms, and you tell them, they are going to take off that percentage of eligibility. So they're going to change that 0 amount to a $250 amount and subtract it from it if you admit to that in your review. Save and continue. We saw a lot of those questions a few years ago, and I think they've stopped because I think a lot of the reviewers are, moving forward with the assumption if you're applying for it, then they have to trust you as the district that you're putting it to its best use on E-rate eligible services. Again, if I wanted to designate this was just for one building over another, I could do so. In this case, a few years ago, the budget was building by building. It isn't anymore. It's the entire district. So you can then choose and say, I want this to just be for both buildings, and that's okay. By choosing both, I have the flexibility of placing this switch in either of the 2 buildings. And confirming on the next page. So there are some of our schools that are working with a provider where you get a page for all one building. So like you might get a bid out for everything that you need for a grade school. And then you get another bid for everything that you need for the high school. It's all one contract, but it's broken down by buildings. I've seen people just kind of add it up and go through it like this, one FRN for all of it. I've seen people break that into 2 different FRNs, one for the grade school, one for the high school. I've seen people list it as 2 totally separate 471s, one for the grade school, one for the high school. There's not a right or wrong way of doing it, but you do want to make sure that you record everything as it's listed on that form. Next, I'm going to do a wireless access point. And in this case, I'm just buying 2 great big wireless access points to cover my cafeteria and my auditorium so that they're big wireless access points. So again, I got to look for that a little bit. And I'm going to find that under wireless data distribution.
Hey, Mindy, can you slow down just a minute, please?
Sure. Is there
Okay.
something in particular you're looking for?
Well, I'm trying to go back and forth and I can't keep up with you and looking at the same time. So I'm interested in the wireless access point.
Okay, I will totally cater that to your example. You can tell me what brands and everything.
I think I need to, because I started off with internal connections because I thought that was what.
It is, internal connections is right. And then you choose the kind of product. So let me go back 1 page to show you.
So I'm adding a new FRN then.
Is this from the same provider as your last one?
I could not, I
didn't
deleted
enter
that
one?
one out.
Okay, so yes, you're adding a new FRN then. And I'm going to see if I can't get to the page that you're on and walk you through it.
I think I'm actually in the type of internal connection. That's what I'm.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so then you added a new FRN line item. Type of internal connection for wireless access points. It's going to be under wireless data distribution.
Okay.
And then type of product is access point.
Okay.
And what model are we adding?
Aruba.
Okay, so we're going to go down to Aruba. And what model number is that?
Well, I have 2 different types.
Okay, we'll add 2 lines then. So what's the first one? They probably have a different price for each as well.
AP 615.
I love live examples. 615, you said.
Yeah.
And again, you're going to say, no, it's not included in the price for installation. And no, it's not a lease. And we're going to click save and continue. So you should be on the monthly reoccurring cost page, and we're going to put zeros over on the left. And how much are each of these things? Aruba's a price.
I'm still trying to see where I need to enter my zeros. Hang on.
Okay. I'm following along.
Okay. So the unit. I
Are
have
each-
also a mounting bracket that's here.
Okay. It's annoying. You have a choice. You can list it as the access point and then go through it as access point because there's not bracket. So access point again and insert the bracket amount, or you can add the 2 amounts together. So say the access point was 300 and the mounting bracket was another 5. You could put it in as 305. It's totally up to you to enter that as 2 lines or 1.
Well, and that's what I'm wondering too, because my labor and everything is calculated in here on one.
Okay, so labor goes on a different line for sure. So
what
let's,
about what? Okay.
do you have licenses for those access points as well?
It's not broken out here that I just can see.
Okay. Okay. Sometimes people do. And if it is a license for something for the good of the group, if it's a license for something, it's that same product. So if it's a firewall device and then a firewall license, that's still listed as a firewall. Same thing for a switch or a wireless access point.
So what I have freight and incidental costs too.
Okay, so we can do that. Let's start first with this one wireless access point. So how much is the wireless access point per each?
This says $692.88.
Okay, so $692.88 goes on the right and all of it is eligible. So you're going to put a 0 underneath. And how many of them are you buying?
58.
So you can clearly see that it's calculated for you. You're going to click on save and continue in the bottom right, and it will take us to the next 2 pages. Again, in your case, Susan, I would leave it to every building in the district. That gives you the flexibility of if come to find out they install it and they find out, you know, like, oh, we really don't need this extra one in the grade school. You could put it in the high school or whatever. So put it both buildings and say save and continue.
Okay.
And then again, confirm that on the next page with a save and continue. So that added that to your chart. And it has a .00 whatever, and it should say wireless data distribution access points 58. So you said there was another kind of wireless access point. So let's click on add new FRN line item.
Okay.
Again, it's wireless data distribution. And did you add in, when you added that up, did you add in the mounting bracket?
Do you want me to add it to this one?
You can do it separately. So like pretend on this one, we're going to choose access point again, and then we'll do the make and model. And I would say like on this one, I would say Aruba. I'll just show you how I would do it. I would say Aruba, and that was like an A615, I think, mounting bracket.
Well, it doesn't tell me what kind, it just says it's a 10 pack and they're going to use 6 of them. They're 60. Well,
oh,
they're
there's
all
60 for all the for all the work
there's
you
60,
did.
yes, there's 60 for each device.
So so you've got 60 to mount all of them. So or you could just say mounting brackets and leave off the model number, and that would be 60 enough to do all of them. Do you know what I mean?
Do I need to make a separate line?
I would do it as a line just like this. So I would say wireless data distribution access point. It's an Aruba mounting bracket. No installation and no lease. Save and continue. And on this page, you, again, we'll have our zeros, but you said that you're getting 6 things of 10, right? And that doesn't give me a choice over here on the left, like it's a dozen or each. So I may say each, how much is it for a package of 10 or whatever?
Well, I've got it's $174.23 for 10 of them. I can,
And then say you need 6 of those, then you're gonna do a 6 down here.
Yeah, I can figure out the individual price on that.
Because you don't necessarily, I mean, that should be 60, right? So there's 10 for 174.23. You're getting 6 of them. So that calculated price here should match for your 60.
Right.
Okay. Now let me show you where the labor is when you guys are ready for that, because it's kind of hidden. So let's do yes for all buildings and yes again. So I'm going to click on add new line item. And on this one, I want to do the installation or the labor. And I understand that you all might have more products to enter, and I'll stick around and answer those questions. But the labor is under miscellaneous, which is not where you would normally find it. And then the type of product is installation and activation. And then Susan, you mentioned another fee or something that might be there.
Oh, I'm just wondering because I don't understand why freight and everything needs to be broken out whenever it should be taken back to the price of the item itself.
I hear what you're saying, but I've seen it broken out just like you're saying, and we just listed as fees, taxes, etc. for that line. So I've seen it where it's like installation is this amount, freight is another amount, and then even taxes for some people have been another amount, and you can list that all in here. So I would list it, if it's sent to you in separate lines, that's how I would list it on this form. I would, to the best of your ability, try to get this form to match what you're looking at in front of you from the bid.
I mean, I see that, but I feel like they can go back and look at the bid if they want.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? 'Cause that's the
I get it, but
that's the contract I'm
if
signing.
you try to total things up yourself and you submit it as a total amount, they're going to come back to you in PIA review and be confused, and they can't figure it out, and they need you to spell it out for them. And will you concede that these are the additional line items that should be added? And it'll go back and forth and be a pain for you. Just trying to save you time and energy in PIA review.
Okay.
At this point, it's kind of choosing your own adventure and moving forward with what you're filing for each of you. Each item is kind of listed under a different place. So where, you know, the installation was under miscellaneous, if you are looking for like a UPS device as a battery backup, that's under data protection, which is a little weird. So your firewall and your data protection are under there. If you are looking for, the weird thing is the modules and transceivers are broken out separately as their own category. So if you're getting modules for a switch, you can just choose module. Some people put it in as a switch and then it's a module for a switch. So there's not a right or wrong way to do it. But I am happy to answer any questions that you might have about where to put things. The other one that I get frequently is cabling and connectors. So you'll get a bid for like wiring your back to your server closet for that grade school or whatever. Anything that is listed as a cable. So whether that's Cat 6, whether that is OM4 fiber, whether that is patch cables, anything that has cable in its description would be cabling connectors cable. And anything that goes along with cabling. So that might be faceplates, raceways, patch panels, any of those kind of connectors that you would have that go along with a cabling project. You got to list every single one if it's broken out by price on your bid. So you would say cabling, this much dollars. Then you would say cabling connectors connector for the faceplate, this much dollars. Connectors, such and such for the raceways and those kind of things. You have to break them all out separately, which is super annoying. But if you don't do it now, they will make you do it in PIA review, and they're sometimes a little snippy about it. So I would do it now. For the good of the recording and moving forward, it is right at 2 o'clock. So I am going to go ahead and stop our recording and thank everybody for coming. And I am going to stick around and just answer individual questions for people as we're moving forward, making sure that we're meeting your needs and answering your questions before you go today. Again, if you need to reach out to me directly, it is just mfiscus@ltcillinois.org. And good luck with your E-rate. Don't forget, you have until March of 2020